And welcome back, everyone. After 8 months of construction, the expansion of the Delta County Historical Society's museum is now complete. The new museum was unveiled earlier this week, right in time for the Esky 150 celebration. We're getting a look around the museum this morning. TV6's Andrew Lacombe is in Escanaba this morning with more. Morning, Andrew.
Good morning, Vicki. That's right. I'm in Escanaba. Behind me is the new part of the Delta County Historical Society Museum. It's called the Dr. John Beaumier Museum and Archives. Dr. Beaumier donated $1 million for this renovation. This section behind me is new to the museum. It's a 3,766 square feet addition. It's got a lot of new archives. We're going to be checking that out as we head inside the museum, learning more about the history of Delta County and Escanaba, of course, which is being celebrated all this week as the Escanaba Sesquicentennial celebration continues. And so we'll be heading inside to check out the displays and the new archives here at the museum. Charles Lindquist, the president of the Delta County Historical Society, will be joining me coming up. And so we'll be heading inside. For more on the Escanaba 150 celebration, go to their website, esky150.org. And for now, we'll head back to the studio live in Escanaba. Andrew Lacombe, TV6 News.
All right, thank you very much. Back on this Thursday morning as the Esky 150 celebration continues, folks have been getting a chance to learn more about the area's history thanks to the newly renovated museum. Now, work just finished up at the Delta County Historical Society. TV6's Andrew Lacombe is there giving us a look around the museum this morning, joining us again. Good morning, Andrew.
Good morning again, Vicki. Now we are in the archive room here at the museum from the Delta County Historical Society, and $1 million went into the renovations of this facility. And joining me now is Charles Lindquist, the president of the Historical Society. And Charles, just tell me how excited you are to have this new facility.
Well, first of all, it's a great pleasure to have you down here in Escanaba on this lovely summer morning. But, we're all just tickled pink. Our city manager came through some time ago and turned to my wife, who is our archivist, and said, Karen, we've got a home run here. We've got a really beautiful building in our lovely Ludington Park, and we're just thrilled. The whole county is thrilled with what we have here, and so appreciative to Dr. John Beaumier for the very wonderful gift that he made to make this building possible.
One of the biggest improvements has been to the archive area here, and that's where we are right now. So just tell us what's here and why Dr. Beaumier wanted to improve this part of the museum.
We're in the location right now where our previous archives was. This is part of our Sandpoint Lighthouse property, and which was run by the U.S. Coast Guard, and they had built a garage. When they left, the garage was left empty, and I guess the Historical Society, this is some years ago, thought, can't just leave that alone, so they turned it into an archive. So our archives was in a Coast Guard garage. And I'll tell you, in the winter, when the winds blew off the North Shore here, it got kind of chilly. And there wasn't any environmental protections in terms of air conditioning in the summer and whatnot. And this is just a larger and a much more workable and environmentally friendly place that we have here for our archives.
Now, we pulled out a couple things that we want to show people at home. So what do we have first? Of course, everyone's thinking about Escanaba's history with the Sesquicentennial celebration happening right now. So we've got tell us what this is.
I'm not real certain why my wife has this in archives. This maybe should be in the museum part. That's my area. But it has to do with our Swedish heritage. We had a church called, the Swedish Lutheran Church, now Bethany Lutheran, and this was just a panel put up to recognize some of the kids who'd been involved in a Sunday school situation way back in the early 20th century.
So I bet some locals would recognize some names on there. Now we pulled out a copy of the Escanaba Journal. You've got all copies of old newspapers back here, and tell us what's on this page that we pulled out this morning.
Well, this is a pretty significant page. This is from April of 1917, and there's a big article talking about some of the early volunteers going off to fight in the war. And then another article dealing with something coming up Delta County wasn't too thrilled about, and that was the possibility of shutting down the taverns. Prohibition seemed to be coming, and this was an area where an awful lot of people like to maybe get a glass of beer after work, and it wasn't going over too well. And as far as the city was concerned, a lot of the revenue came from a liquor tax. So there are a lot of reasons for people not being very happy about that. Of course, it came, and we had to live with it.
Okay, thanks so much for sharing these two pieces of Escanaba history with us, and there's plenty more in the museum here, and we're going to be checking that out coming up in the next half hour. So again, we're down here at the Delta County Historical Society, their new museum down by Ludington Park, and we'll be back here in the next half hour checking out more of the museum. We'll have more information about how you can visit the museum coming up in the next half hour, so stick around. We'll go back to the studio now, live in Escanaba. Andrew Lacombe, TV6 News.
All right, thank you very much, Andrew. Sounds like a really neat...
Welcome back, everyone. After 8 months of construction, the expansion of the Delta County Historical Society's museum is complete. The new museum was unveiled earlier this week, just in time for the Esky 150 celebration. TV6's Andrew Lacombe is giving us a look around the museum this morning and joins us again from Escanaba with more. Andrew?
Hey Greg, earlier we were in the archives section of the new museum, and now we're in the exhibit area. This is the Bank and Commerce area, and as we look over here, this is some old bank equipment from First National Bank in Escanaba. And you know, there's exhibits all around the museum featuring the logging history, the shipping history with the ore docks, and of course we have railroads too. So a lot of history from Delta County here at the museum. And joining us again, Charles Lindquist, the president of the Delta County Historical Society. And just tell me how the exhibits have changed as you've renovated here in the last 8 months.
It's been really a wonderful opportunity. We have more room now, and we thought, well, let's try to reorganize the exhibits and make them more coherent in terms of themes. So the room we're in right now is the bank and business room. Another room is our railroad room. We had that already, but we even reorganized there some. In every room we've tried to reorganize with a theme related to some special aspect of our Delta County heritage.
Okay, now we have a special piece of history here. It kind of ties into what we were talking about earlier with that newspaper from World War I. Just tell us about what we have.
Well, they're a little apprehensive. Prohibition might be coming. This was not a county that was too thrilled about that in many respects. And right here we have a still that was, I think, put to use by a local family, the Beauchamp family. And we were offered this a few years ago, and I thought, oh, wow, a still going right back to, I'm sure, the 1920s and early 30s when Prohibition was in. And one of the ways in which you can really see it probably is that it has slash marks on both sides of it. When I think the police came in and did find the still, those things would have been heavy with all the mash in them. And so instead of trying to lug that out, they just, put the axe to it and let it drain out. If the lady of the house said, "That's my clean kitchen floor," they probably would have said, "Ma'am, you should have maybe had your husband put that still in some back room somewhere. Too bad for you." But anyway, Mr. Beauchamp, I think, after he got out of jail, came back and had those slashes fixed up and put the still back to work again.
Okay, now on a related note, we've got some showcases here with some pieces from some old breweries here in town in Escanaba, right?
We had two breweries in town, and we're getting Bell's Brewery coming back, and we've had a local brewery, Hereford and Hops, for some years, so that's part of our heritage. But beyond that, something that people don't often think, they think of alcohol consumption, but boy, the guys smoked a lot of cigars back in the day too, and we had half a dozen manufacturers of cigars here in Escanaba, making some $500,000 a year. Probably a lot of them were smoked in taverns in Escanaba, and I think they had a few taverns up in Negaunee and Ishpeming too. I'm not certain about that, but somehow I think maybe they did.
Okay, now how can people come out and check out more of the museum? When are you open?
During the summer, our hours that we're open 7 days a week. Every day of the week we're open, and we're open from 11 to 4 every day.
Okay.
And I should, if it's okay, I want to mention, really the big draw besides this new wonderful museum is our Sandpoint Lighthouse, which goes back to 1867 and was redone by our Historical Society back in the 1980s. And people come from all over the country and even the world to see lighthouses, on the Great Lakes. And we're one of the best stops because you're right in the town. You don't have to go way down to the end of nowhere, the way you do with Seshwa or Stonington Point and whatnot. So it makes for a real accommodating lighthouse to see here in Escanaba.
All right, Charles, thanks so much for being here with us this morning. And if you want to learn more about the Historical Society, you have a good website, deltahistorical.org. So you can go check that out. We'll go back to the studio now, live in Escanaba. Andrew Lacombe, TV6 News.
Thanks, Andrew. And we'll be right back with a look ahead to the Big Brothers Big Sisters